Hey girl, hey. Are you looking for us on social media?
You can find us on Insta at Guy Girls Media and on Facebook at DTASS Podcast.
I treasure the juxtaposition of things that don't feel like they should go together, and then yet somehow they do. And I find that the funniest, and I find that like my brain says that's the highest form of humor. And I mean, that's probably just because that's what I'm good at and I can, and I do it. But I also did not consider that part of what makes the Log Driver's Waltz so delightful is that juxtaposition between his manly brawniness and his ability to dance and the fact that that makes him so desirable. Yeah, I don't know. Like, did this set me on my career path?
Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. So come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit. I'm Tracie Guy-Decker, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit, because pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, we're welcoming a special guest, Aaron Reynolds, the mind behind Effin' Birds. And Aaron is going to be sharing his deep thoughts about the Log Driver's Waltz with me, my sister, Emily Guy Birken, and with you. So let's dive in. Aaron, welcome.
Hello.
It's great to have you on Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit. So, listeners, Aaron is the 6-time Webby Award-winning cartoonist behind Effin' Birds. And if you're unfamiliar with it, you should pause this podcast right now and navigate over to effinbirds.com and take a look because it's hilarious.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So, the Log Driver's Waltz. I have to admit, I have no idea what that is. So
Right.
I have nothing in my head about this one. What about you, Em?
It's nothing. I got nothing. Tabula rasa.
Tabula
Like,
rasa. Tabula
love
rasa.
this.
Cool.
Love this.
So, Aaron, what is the Log Driver's Waltz and why is it so important? Like, what's at
Why
stake
is it
here?
important? Yeah. So there are multiple things involved. Canadians of a certain age, and I mean basically 50-year-old Canadians, will have the Log Driver's Waltz burned into their brains because there was a National Film Board of Canada animated short film made of the song The Log Driver's Waltz that has it's very fanciful animation and it's quite beautiful, and it would run whenever there was 3 minutes of loose time at the end of a block of children's programming on the CBC because they didn't run commercials during children's programming. And so they would generally run a National Film Board short aimed at children between the end credits of that show and the next show. And more often than not, it was the Log Driver's Waltz. And what's extra funny about it is because it was always fitting into that little time, you would never see the whole thing. You would see the first minute of it, and then it would fade out and the next show would start. And so most people who know the Log Driver's Waltz very intimately don't know the last verse of the song, The Log Driver's Waltz. So it's actually a very, very old song. It's one of the songs that was, do you guys know Folkways? Do you know that record label?
Yeah.
The whole project to try to collect all of those folk songs?
Yes. Yeah.
So there are recordings of Wade Hemsworth, who is a Canadian folk singer, playing all of these songs like Black Fly and Eyes the Bye, which is a song, very Newfoundland song, and Donkey Riding, which for some reason, every Canadian school child learns donkey riding, even though it's a song about moving your lumber out of Quebec. His version of it in the recording, his guitar is out of tune, and he's a man with a very burly man voice singing a song from the point of view of a woman, which is like this extra disconnect. And it's also like it's kind of a gentle and heartfelt song. So that version of it sounds very funny.
Is that the Log
that's the
Driver's
donkey.
Waltz or the donkey riding? That's the donkey.
No,
okay.
That's Log Driver's Waltz.
Log Driver's Waltz. Okay.
Yeah, Log Driver's
So
Waltz.
this old recording with the out-of-tune guitar. So Log Driver's Waltz is from the point of view of a woman. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And so I'm not clear on whether Wade Hemsworth wrote this song or if this is a folk song that he heard from somewhere else and then recorded. I mean, it feels very much like all of the other songs that are Wade Hemsworth songs that are vignettes of being Canadian or of traveling around Canada and discovering a thing. Because like the whole thing about donkey riding is about like laborers who go from job to job and who are like riding the iron boat down the canal and getting the next job and breaking their backs doing this and doing that. And Eyes the By is a song about a man in Newfoundland trying to impress a woman by building a boat and stuff like that. And Log Driver's Waltz is about a woman whose parents would like her to marry a doctor or a lawyer, but she waits until all the log drivers come to town during the drive and goes dancing with them because they're all so light on their feet. Do you know the whole idea of a log driver?
Are they the ones who dance on the wood on the river?
Yes, and it's not dancing as much as they are trying to direct all those logs down the river because they've cut them down, they've thrown them into the river, and now they're going to collect them at the mill. So they have to make sure they don't like wash ashore. They have to make sure that they're all lined up and going down the river. And so they have pikes and boots with spikes on them, and they are literally like running forwards and backwards on the logs to turn them in the right direction and using the pike to grab other logs and drag them around. And it was incredibly dangerous work.
Yeah.
Because you could easily fall off and get crushed between the logs. And you had to be so nimble and so agile and
athletic.
So fast. Yes. Yeah. So much so that the other name for a log driver is a rough rider. And the Ottawa Rough Riders were the longest running professional sports franchise in history until they went bankrupt in the mid 2010s, which was a crime. But also so much so that were two football teams in the Canadian Football League, both called the Rough Riders. There were the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Winnipeg Rough Riders, which are still around. So, no sweat on Winnipeg.
So you gave us the quick synopsis of like what happens in this song. This woman who doesn't want a professional, she wants a log driver because he's light on his feet.
Log driver. Yeah.
Talk to us about like the whole experience of this cartoon that you were watching over and over and over again.
Right. It's so beautiful. Yeah. So the recording of it is the McGarrigle sisters, who are like iconic folk singers. And they've done a really beautiful arrangement of it. And it starts with some piano and then some accordion, and they start singing it. The short opens with black and white footage of real log drivers doing the log drive, like working the logs down the river. And at one point, they pass a point in the river, at the bend of the river. And as they pass the bend in the river, everything becomes animated and more fanciful. And suddenly the log driver has a longer cap that like is trailing behind him, and these long socks and this colorful plaid flannel shirt. And he's, dancing along the logs, and it becomes much more animated and big. And the animation is a very literal representation of the song. The lyric that I always like and the part of the animation that I always like are when she's talking about the doctors and lawyers. Their manners are fine, but their feet are of clay. and it's this lineup of these really sort of boring looking men along the wall at a dance. And then the log driver swoops in and, sweeps her off her feet, and they do their little dance. And it's just, it's the most beautiful. And it's very like, part of it is that I'm sure that I watched it so many times that it's just burned into that part of my consciousness. And part of it is that it really is great. Like, it is one of our most like celebrated and most seen shorts. And the National Film Board in Canada they have put together a lot of great art, and particularly a lot of great shorts. Did you ever see like The Cat Came Back, the animated film of The Cat Came Back? That was a short about the man who keeps trying to get rid of the cat.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. I mean, I know the song.
Yeah. So it's based on the song, and it is, but I mean, it's like almost like a Warner Brothers cartoon because there's dynamite and like,
always
the cat
trying to get rid of it. Yeah, that does ring bells.
Yeah, that's some National Film Board, or things like The Big Snit, which I can't even describe it. No, I'm not going to try. But like, it's about a dispute between a married couple, but it ends with nuclear war. Like, it's crazy. But that was the great thing, is the National Film Board was a place that you could go and get funding to make something weird or something different or something that nobody was willing to put up the money for, or that didn't have a commercial prospect. And so it's where beautiful things came out of it. And I used to work near the National Film Board offices in downtown Toronto, and I didn't ever go in, but I always sort of took a moment to be thankful by their door when I went by.
So I want to dig into so it's however many years ago, 40 years ago, and young Aaron is watching children's programming in Canada, and there are no commercials. Instead, there's the Log Driver's Waltz, or at least some portion of it. Right?
That's right. There would also be we used to have things called heritage minutes, which were little dramatized 1-minute vignettes out of Canadian history, like the moment that the harbor blew up, or what's the best one? I always remember one that's about a rowing race, or the discovery of the polio vaccine. There are all these little 1-minute, very earnest dramatizations of moments in history. Oh, the invention of basketball. That's my favorite one. Canada taking credit for
basketball.
Basketballs. Yeah.
So, okay. So you're sitting there, you're 10 years old or whatever. And there's heritage minutes and there's children's programming and there's all this happening. And right now you're feeling very nostalgic about it.
Yes.
Which is great. I love nostalgia. That's part of our whole project. Yeah. But let's look behind, what were the lessons lurking? What are the lessons there lurking behind the nostalgia from the Log Driver's Waltz in particular?
Sure.
It sounds to me like there's some stuff about romance, about masculinity, maybe.
Yes.
What's in there?
I think that, oh, wow. So I hadn't really put the masculinity part onto it. And when you say that, it's a very distinct kind of masculinity, because this is a man who does a job that is very tough, and also he's a great dancer.
Right.
And that is not your typical picture of the working man, and that it makes him so attractive. Right. And and so that's really funny. I never really thought about that, but I'm sure that has had an impact on me and the way that I live my life.
Tabula rasa for me, hearing you talk about it. I'm hearing we've got these smart guys who are accomplished, but they're boring.
They're boring.
They're really boring, and they can't dance. And so the ideal man, he faces danger, and he's very athletic, he's strong. And he can sweep her off her feet on the dance floor. And sort of that particular picture of masculinity, and what then the seed of that, what does that grow into as that 10-year-old becomes a 20-year-old, becomes a 30-year-old? It's there from the Log Driver's Waltz. The fact that we met you at Fan Expo, and we were we do this thing. And you were yes, I want to come on and talk about stuff. And this is the thing that you picked.
Right. Yeah.
What is that plant that's growing back there that's been there for all this time?
Oh, I was not prepared to have a real
oh, we do it real. We are deep thinkers.
Yeah, we want to know what furniture's in your head.
Wow. Yeah, this is so strange to actually try to layer that onto my life. But no, 100%.
Well, it's also to get into what is it saying about Canadian masculinity? Because the log drivers,
sure.
I have no doubt that there were American log drivers, but this feels like there is no Log Driver's Waltz in America. We don't have this.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't think you have the same kind of
it's not part of our culture. Not even in Vermont or in the parts of the country where logging was an important part of was
a thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to try to paint a larger picture of Canada. We're a big place, and we don't value conformity as a country, right? We're very much the opposite of a melting pot. We like everybody to bring their own stuff, and then have all our neighborhoods be filled with lots of weird things. In general, there's some people who chafe at that, but that's the general Canadian ethos. But yeah, I think that because I have never loved the idea of trying to be a manly man. And that has been a struggle for me. Did I stand up when you guys were there at the show? I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2".
Oh, no, you were seated. You were seated and drawing.
I'm tall and broad. If I were born in that time, I would probably be in one of those industries. Do you know what I mean? But I don't think that I'm emotionally in a place where I would ever want to do that kind of work. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not that guy. Like, I want to make music, or, make art, or like do things with my hands that are not a hammer. And that's not saying anything negative about a person who does want to do something with a hammer. It's just that it was never the path for me. And I don't think that I interrogated if this animated short that I watched a lot as a child ever had any impact on that.
I mean, I think that's what you're describing about yourself is reflected in your art, which Aaron draws birds at FM Birds, and they're very precise. Like there's a delicacy to your line work. You're not like,
broad strokes,
big brawny kind of
That's fair.
Artist. You're not like Sharpie drawing. So I think that is sort of reflected. I'm interested in the fact that this ideal masculinity from the log driver's Waltz.
Yes.
It's actually not the fact that he's a log driver.
No, it's the part that
he's light on his feet.
that he's a good dance partner. Like, I think that the idea of being a good partner in being what the other person wants is like so potent and so powerful. And I mean, so it's quite romantic in the short and in the song. I'm very thankful that we're having a conversation that's blowing my own mind here while we're like, this is great.
Tracie will tell you I am a chronic rereader of books. Do you remember Tracie saying that you wanted to like write about the fact that every time you see me, I'm rereading the same book?
Yeah. There was this one book that like every time, like I went away to college and I'd come back and every time she's like, I'm like, you're still reading that book.
So it's called The Grubbenstakers Move a Mountain, and it's by Alyssa Craig, which was the pen name of Charlotte MacLeod, who she was based, I believe she was Canadian, but she lived in Boston. But this was a Canadian cozy mystery that I know better than she did, probably. As I've read it so many times. Yep. I've actually, like, if ever we're in an alternate universe, I'll know because the book has changed. Like, it's right. Like little phrases in the book have changed. I'm like, we're in an alternate universe. That Canadian cozy, which is set in a like fictional small town, and I've read the entire series. And long story short, it's bringing up like some of the things like this is like how I know Canada is through my reading, through like those sorts of things. And it's bringing up the similar sort of sense of romance and sense of like quirkiness, I guess. The idea that like, her parents are like, well, we want you to marry someone who's got a good job, who's like smart, who's going to be like able to take care of you. And she's like, no, I want someone who can dance with me. These books are about, it's a gardening club that is also an archery club, because when they started the archery club, everyone who wanted to join the archery club was already in the gardening club. So they just changed the bylaws.
Nice. Okay. That's great. Love that.
And so that sense, as you're describing it, I was just like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. And what's funny is like as in my own writing, I treasure the juxtaposition of things that don't feel like they should go together, and then yet somehow they do. And I find that the funniest, and I find that like my brain says that's the highest form of humor. And I mean, that's probably just because that's what I'm good at and I can, and I do it. But I also did not consider that part of what makes the Log Driver's Waltz so delightful is that juxtaposition between his manly brawniness and his ability to dance, and the fact that makes him so desirable. And yeah, I don't know, like, did this set me on my career path?
Did it?
Like,
I mean, talk to me about the artwork. When it goes from the live action to animation, like,
it's a very playful, rubbery style. It was common in National Film Board shorts, and I'm sure that's because there was a whole apprenticeship program that people would learn animation from the people who did animation in this style. But all of like the arm and leg motions are very broad and sweeping, and there's no things will change size in an elastic kind of way for playfulness. And there's a lot of great like physics with the bouncing of the logs in the water and things like that are very distinctive, like a slow fast that happens.
Like dancing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all waltz time, and it's all set to the song. And a lot of like big perspective stuff, like out to the screen and then back to change scenes or to just like to give you a little bump as the viewer. I tried for a long time. When I was in high school, I would do comic strips for the high school newspaper, and there was definitely an influence there in style. Like I tried to do that the way that they did hands and feet. I definitely aped those hands and feet when I couldn't figure out the right way to do hands and feet from people. And what I eventually had to learn was that I can't. So this was a whole conversation that I had. I did a comic book cover for a comic called Sweet Paprika recently, and I was so happy to be asked. But then I was like, I don't draw people. Like, what can I do from your book that's not people? And we settled on me doing a cover that predominantly featured the dog that's a minor character in the story. And it was the dog reading the previous issues of the comic and giving side eye to the reader, like, what are you going to do here? But like, yeah, there's these little dinner roll feet that all the characters have in that short. And when I realized I just couldn't draw a shoe or a boot, so I just started drawing the dinner rolls, and I was like, oh, that's easy, I can do that. So I'm sure I've stolen lots of it over the years. And it was, by the way, the first song that I learned to play on the ukulele. It's my go-to if I pick up a ukulele and tune it, and then I'm going to play the Log Driver's Waltz for about 10 seconds to make sure it's in tune. So
I really want to learn to play the ukulele. It's like a bucket list for me.
It's so easy. It's only 4 strings. It's only 4 strings. The hardest part is strumming patterns. That's the hardest part. And that's just repetition.
So I'm going to circle back to something that you said when you talked about like the highest form of humor, which is exactly what you do, right? Which is to like the juxtaposition of things that don't seem like they should go together. I mean, that is effing birds, right? We've got these Audubon quality drawings of birds with these like, F word over and over again. And it is hilarious. It's interesting to think that the Log Driver's Waltz was in some way influential on that sense of humor. On that sense of humor. And what I'm teasing at here is that it's more than just what's funny. There's also some like desirability and merit in it, right?
Yes.
And especially like as you grew to be your 6'2" broad-shouldered self, right? To sort of see that like that's actually not what the log driver was valued for.
Right. That's right.
And so like he was big and broad and athletic and all those things. But that actually wasn't the thing for which he was most valued. And that sort of juxtaposition, like I hear the humor, I see the humor in your work of that juxtaposition, but it feels like the tentacles are much broader than that.
Yeah, deeper than that. Yeah.
I mean, even the what you just described that you did for the comic book, right? Like the dog who was reading and breaking the fourth wall with the reader. Yes. Like there's a lot of juxtaposition of things that shouldn't go together there and yet somehow do.
Yep. And I didn't mention this, but the dog is in heaven and is surrounded by heavenly rays sitting in a cloud and his little angel wings because he is in fact an angel dog in the book. Yeah. I would normally have said when trying to like trace influences, I would say that a lot of my humor comes from the Adam West Batman series because it's so dry and it's so deliberate at not telling you why it's funny. It goes out of its way to pretend that it's not being funny at all. I was thrilled to read through. I got a huge cache of production documents from the series. And I read a lot of memos and a lot of letters back and forth from the producers and the writers to each other. And my favorite line was, if they see us winking, we're dead. And so it's about being like, not telling jokes. You're writing very funny things and you are just saying, oh no, those aren't jokes. That's not jokes. We're going to deliver this like it's the most serious thing in the world. I've always had that kind of like in the back of my brain when I do stuff, just from like I watched so much of that as a kid and really loved it, and then was thrilled to find out later that it was funny. Do you know what I mean? Like when I watched it as a kid, the whole point is as a kid you think it's serious, and as an adult you find it's incredibly funny. And so I guess that would have been a more subliminal one because I was making funny things before I knew that Batman was funny. And I did always find the Log Driver's Waltz funny, not in a ha-ha way, but in a, oh, I've just been delighted by something way, like, here's my big smile and I really like it. And by the way, the last verse of the song is that when the season's over, she's going to ask him to marry her.
Oh,
which is so
that's
nice.
delightful.
Yes.
but you said you didn't hear that bit.
A lot of people,
often.
you don't get to that part unless you get all the way to all 3 minutes of the Log Driver's Waltz, which you often wouldn't get to.
So there's something about femininity as well here.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And about like she knows what she wants and it ain't
Yep.
those guys.
Well, and they're fine. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that she's kind to them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not.
They're
what
just
she
not
wants.
They're
for
not what
her.
she wants.
Yeah.
And once
Yeah.
she knows what she wants, like that's very subversive. I'm going to ask him to marry me like that,
Yeah.
especially from when we were kids. That was
Yes.
not a thing. And if this is a
Absolutely.
folk song that's even older,
Yeah, exactly.
so
This is
there's a subversion of expected gender norms in both directions then
Mhm.
with the final verse.
Yeah.
That's
It's
great.
quite lovely. Yeah. I should just send you guys a link so you should just
We
spend
will-
a moment watching the
Yes,
film.
please do. We'll include it in the show notes so our listeners
Yeah.
can watch it as well.
I asked my husband to marry me in 2007, and I had people freaking out
Aw.
about it. In 2007.
And was he a log driver?
No.
Is he a
No, mechanical engineer, which not at all similar.
I mean that's similar. No,
There's
I guess
less likelihood of being crushed by logs, so I mean it's non-zero chance,
fair.
but
I guess it depends on what you're
Yeah,
mechanically
yeah.
engineering.
I surprised you by talking about masculinity. What did you think
Yes.
you were going to be talking about?
I wasn't sure. I was just going to talk about the place that it holds in my heart because I don't interrogate my feelings I don't interrogate my feelings for a lot of things. Like I find it interesting to do sometimes, but I often am just like, you know what I'm happy to do is I'm happy to just like this. Because sometimes when you think about it too hard, you're like, you can break it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, we
there's
know
a-
what you mean.
yeah, we
Yeah.
almost subtitled this podcast "Ruining Our Own Childhood" since 2023.
Right. There's a lyric to a song that I really like that I've never understood. And I ended up sitting in a bar with the songwriter for about half an hour before a show and having a great conversation with her. And it took every fiber of my being not to ask her what the lyric meant because I knew I would break the magic of it for myself if I gave it a concrete something, you know what I mean? And so I was like, I didn't, but I want to know. And I mean, I can just like tweet at her and I'm sure she would tell me, but I'm not going to. So,
Okay, so you were just going to nostalgia us.
Yeah.
I was just going to see, what happened. And I was interested to see
Yeah.
what your questions would
Yeah.
be
Interesting.
to where they would take me. Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, there's a lot in
mean-
what you're telling us about. I'm just that brought up for me the difference in because we're approximately the same age. The difference in our childhoods, even though I don't think of like a 70s, 80s, 90s childhood in America and Canada being that different.
right. They'd
but
be a little different. Yeah.
There are a lot of differences, like just the fact no commercials in children's
Yeah.
television. That's huge.
Yeah, right.
That's a huge difference.
Yep. Yep. If we wanted to know what action figures were coming out, we had to put on the Buffalo Channel. You know.
Well, and our television,
Yeah.
like I loved He-Man, and they came up. The action figures came first, and then they came up with the cartoon.
Right. Oh yeah. He-Man was
Yeah.
advertising. He-Man was straight up advertising.
He was.
And I
he
mean,
was.
even G.I.
Oh, yeah.
Joe was that, you
Totally.
know. I had a very weird nostalgia fueled moment because I ended up meeting Larry Hama, who's the guy who gave G.I. Joe all their stories when the little G.I. Joes came out, you know, because G.I. Joe used to be a
Barbie
big
size.
like,
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
Barbie doll.
Barbie sized. Yeah. But he was one dude.
Mhm.
And he was G.I. Joe, and he had different costumes. And the Larry Hama version of G.I. Joe was every one of these guys has a name, a backstory, a real name, a code name, you know, and how they got here. And I've met him a bunch of times at Comic-Cons now, and it is really wild to like talk to the guy who like was the architect of so many afternoons spent lying on my stomach on the carpet, making these little men interact with each other, you know?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I would love to be able to do that, have that kind of connection with anybody involved in the creation of the Log Driver's Waltz, but it's so long ago. I don't know that we know who wrote the song.
Well, it sounds like if it's recorded on Folkways Records, my recollection of their whole mission was that they were collecting things. Like, so it wouldn't have been something that, I don't remember the singer's name, Wade
Hemsworth.
Wade Hemsworth would have written, but that he had collected, like he had learned from someplace else.
Exactly.
So it's probably fairly old, which makes it all the more delightful, the subversion of the gender norms, because it's old. And then the fact that it was then like drilled into a whole generation of Canadian children's heads. There's something really fascinating about that.
It must have made us all a little bit weird. Or a little bit, not weird's not the word, a little bit, let us question all the other things that we were being told about these things.
Well, it gives permission, and not just permission, it rewards sort of resisting the cultural norms, the gender norms, the very practical expectations of the girl's parents to marry a professional man, at least in terms of romance. It gives permission to counter those norms. We talked about the juxtaposition earlier, and I was thinking of sort of the log driver himself, but even the medium of its live action, and then a bend in the river, and then it becomes the animation. There's something in that juxtaposition too, something sort of magical when it's viewed through her eyes, that I still, like when SpongeBob like cuts to like an actual live action sponge, I still find that like I laugh out loud every time.
Very
that, like,
funny every time.
Juxtaposition of the animation and the live action. And SpongeBob, it's the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it were just from black and white to color, like The Wizard of Oz or something, there's magic in that. It's all the more magical when the live action, like old-timey film, I'm imagining like old film, like from the 30s or something.
You got it. And it's all grainy and it's dirty. And
then it like a bend in the river, and all of a sudden it's this very flowy animation that moves in time to the music.
Exactly.
Just in my imagination, that is so delightful. And there's, as you said, it's funny not in a ha-ha, but in a like a magic sort of way.
Right. Exactly. And I think too that like lyrically it is clever in a way that surprises. You know what I mean? Like you never really know what's going to come for that rhyme. And I like that a lot. I like not being able to complete the rhyme in my head before we get there because it's an unexpected little bit. It is I'm having a hard time thinking about my own work and like the DNA of this inside of it.
Well,
this is very strange for me.
You said it made you all weird. It didn't make you all weird. What it did was it like rewarded you for not being predictable.
Right.
Which is what you do.
Predictable's the worst. Predictable's the worst. Yeah.
That's what you do, though. That is what Effin' Birds is. Like, if I didn't read English and I just looked at it, there's no way I would guess what the captions are on your cartoons.
Yep. That's right. That has been, by the way, the biggest challenge for when we talk about translation. Moving this to other markets. Like, it works pretty well in France French.
Yep.
But it doesn't work in Quebec French, which is so funny. Yeah, but France French, it's quite terrific. But part of that is the man who did the translation is an absolute poet. There are people who... Here's the problem with being on the internet is that you get people interacting with you that you would never want to interact with in real life. And because I do something related to birds, which is a special interest topic for a lot of people who have who get into very like the nitty gritty of the understanding of all these things, people will nitpick in truly insane ways. And I had someone
like the way you render the bird. They'll be the beak is the wrong color or something.
Well, sometimes people are like that, and I don't care, but because I don't care that much. The thing that they get often the most picky about is what the caption says and how that is in some way not applicable to a bird.
To that bird.
Yeah, or to any bird.
Yeah. Did you say you got it?
You got it. That's the joke. I'm not making bird jokes. I'm making emotion jokes because bird jokes are only funny for bird people. I posted one page of the French translation, like just to show it. It was the eagle that's flying away that says eat farts. And in French, it was just a very beautiful way of saying it in French. And there was this guy who just kept insisting that his translation was more accurate and the translation in my book was wrong. And how could I do that? And I was like, well, first of all, I didn't translate my own book. Like, I'm not a translator. My publisher in France translated this book, and they had an award-winning poet do it. But if you would like, I will tag him into the replies and ask him why his is better than yours. And so I tagged him in the replies, and God bless him. He said, well, what they want you to have written is a very pedestrian, eat the fart that I made. And what I wrote, which I think is much more elegant, is eat the smell of my farts. And I was like, there you go, buddy. That's why you're wrong. That's like, why would you? And then he was like, well, I only did French in university anyways. I was like, well, fuck you. What are you doing? Like, like what? So, yeah.
Let me guess. White dude?
Oh, of course. It was going to be a white dude or anime avatar or a Roman statue avatar. Like, those are the only guys. Those are the only guys to do that.
I just recently had someone describe someone was wrong on the internet, and I waded in. I shouldn't have. A friend, shouldn't have.
Don't.
But a friend of mine was like, she was like, I was going to tag team, and I realized you were okay because that guy was strung up by his nose hairs. And I was like, that is the greatest description of it ever. Strung up by his nose hairs.
By his nose hairs. Oh, that's really good. I like that.
It's going to end up in a comic soon.
Yeah. Well, I'm always looking for what's the new version of, like, let's take a chestnut of an expression, like hoist on their own petard or whatever else. And then, like, what is the version of that fits in effing birds? And my favorite, when I was trying to figure out a new variation on, cutting off your nose to spite your face, and I wrote, try not to set your dick on fire. And that one, I think I nailed it.
I think you did. I think you did.
Yeah.
So my challenge to you is I want you to go back and, like, print out the lyrics to Log Driver's Waltz and figure out at least one Effing Birds comic.
That's, oh my God.
That can be inspired.
Okay. Yep.
By lyrics.
By the Log Driver's Waltz. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I can find something.
I'm sure you can too.
Man. I'm trying to I'm trying to go through the song in my head because part of knowing it so well is that I'm almost not singing words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing it and singing it. I'm just making the sounds that I know come next.
Totally. That's why I said print out the lyrics. Don't do it from memory.
I gotta go look at them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, she'll say I'm not sure that it's business of yours, but I do like to dance with a log driver. That's that's right near the top of the song.
Yeah. All right. This has been a lot of fun. Tell me, Aaron, okay, so you were just going to bring this and, like, just nostalgia over it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we got through what you needed to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm realizing that my task of remembering all the takeaways is actually pretty heavy lift today.
Right? Sorry.
So I'm going to start a little earlier than I ordinarily would to make sure there's time for you two to, like, remind me of the stuff I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Because we talked about a lot of stuff.
This was surprisingly deep for a 3-minute National Film Board animated
It's
short.
in the name of the show, Aaron. Did you not know what show you were coming on?
Listen, I intellectually knew what I was in for, but I didn't game it out in my head what was going to happen.
All right. So we're talking about the Log Driver's Waltz, which is, we think, a folk song from Canada that was turned into a delightful animated short that also has some live action film to the song that was recorded by, remind me, somebody's sisters.
Kate and Anna McGarrigle.
The McGarrigle sisters are singing in the version that you were watching as a young one. And this is fascinating as an American, as having grown up in the United States about the same time. The idea that the Canadians did not show commercials during children's programming, like, wow.
Yep.
And how did you know what to buy?
Well, that's the thing. But we also and that programming, it wasn't like, if you wanted to watch G.I. Joe, there wasn't a Canadian channel showing it. If you wanted to watch He-Man, there was not. Like, you would have to find the Buffalo channel or get the rabbit ears out and find an NBC affiliate from across the water, Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So this delightful short, yeah, seriously, like, it's just a totally different kind of a childhood. Like, I have nostalgia for those commercials. But anyway,
Right.
I can sing the songs of those
totally. They're in there. They are furniture of the minds.
And to be clear, though, like, I totally did see all those commercials because we would also watch American television.
Right.
But we would just do the hop back and forth, We'd be like, oh, we're going to watch this. And now this one's on.
It's just that, like...
Yeah, the concept.
Yeah, well, it's just the fact that the Canadian television was, like, thinking about the well-being of the children. And American television gave us some good body.
Let me...
Like...
Right. So let me tell you what was up against G.I. Joe when I was a kid. Buffalo 29 was showing G.I. Joe, and at the same time, TV Ontario was showing a show called Magic Shadows, in which Elwy Yost, who is their in-house film critic and programmer and interviewer, and is a man with a voracious appetite for all kinds of film, who loves film and can contextualize film for you. He would chop up a film into 30-minute chunks and show it over the course of a week. And he would do an intro to tell you what you had missed, to catch you up on it. And then he would show you, and then he would do a little teaser at the end to tell you what was coming tomorrow. And so he would show up against G.I. Joe would be Treasure Island, chopped into 5 parts with Elwy Yost. And then the exciting part, too, is that Elwy's son, Graham, is quite a famous screenwriter and television producer now. He did Speed, was a film that he wrote. That was his big breakthrough movie. But most recently has been working on a lot of great television, including Silo and Slow Horses and some really great stuff like that. Yeah. Love that guy. So that's a lot of that childhood comes from Elwy Yost and TV Ontario.
So Canadians actually like program television for children, like for the children's well-being, which is really mind-blowing.
Right, exactly. It wasn't to make money.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
You could do that?
I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but we're socialists.
Can you say that out loud?
So there...
Sure. I mean, my voting record, I tend to vote for the New Democrats. So, that's our socialist party.
You socialists up in Canada were showing this little short when there was time that Americans would have filled with advertising.
Yes.
And so this short, which often you didn't see the whole thing, we had this story told from the woman's point of view of this young woman whose parents want her to marry a very practical lawyer or doctor, but those men can't dance. They're just so boring. And so she's waiting for the log drivers to come into town because she wants to dance with them because they are light on their feet. And if we make it through the full 3 minutes, not only is there that subversion of sort of the practical, like she wants the magic of dance and artistic expression in dance, if you will, if I can push it that far. She also subverts gender norms by saying she's going to ask him to marry her.
And I just realized something that I'm really big on is there's a whole anticipation aspect to the song, because the second verse is, when the drive's nearly over, I like to go down and watch all the lads as they work on the river. I know that come evening, they'll all be in town and I'll get to dance with my log driver. Just going to watch them at work, because knowing that hours later, they're going to be there to dance.
Well, she can also sort of evaluate which one is like.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's right.
So I sort of surprised you when, based on your description of this short and the song and the content, like I immediately asked you about romance and masculinity.
Yes.
And so we started talking about masculinity in general, but also in particular for you, Aaron, like because you're a big guy who, if you had been in Canada in the 30s, like probably would have been pushed into log driving or some similar like brawn-based profession based on your physical shape. And that was never really it for you, which plays out in what you do now with this very funny cartoon with very precise drawing. And this short, this song that was drilled like just over and over layered into your head to build the furniture of your mind gave you permission to still be a manly man even though you weren't doing the manly things.
Right. Exactly. Oh, that's it. I'm not being a man in the wrong way.
Right. Well put. This song and animated short gave a whole generation of Canadian men permission to eschew toxic masculinity. That you don't have to be hyper masculine in order to be a man in the right way, in a way that is desirable, that the women will appreciate and want to be with you and even maybe ask you to marry her.
Right. And you can wear the plaid shirt and it's okay. You don't have to be the guy who chops the wood to wear the plaid shirt. You can go dances and wear the plaid shirt.
Yeah. So we talked about how there was some tension, I think, in our conversation about whether this led to weirdness, which I think was said with affection.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But I think we push back a little bit on that idea that it's not exactly weirdness so much as it's permission to not be predictable. And in fact, reward to be unpredictable, which happens in so many ways through this short, not just through the song, the lyrics that you can't predict what the next rhyme is going to be, but also through the animation that moves in flowy, unpredictable ways. The actual content of the story of what happens, the fact that this woman wants to dance rather than have a safe life. In so many ways, this little piece of media told you again and again and again that predictable is not so great.
Right.
It's better to be unpredictable.
It's not necessary, and it can be delightful to be unpredictable.
So this led us to also conversations about humor and what is funny. And the highest form of humor is when we stick two things together that seem like they shouldn't go, but actually do, which is epitomized in Effin' Birds. Listeners, seriously, go check it out. And also, that led you backward in a tangent to think about Adam West's Batman, where it's not just sort of the juxtaposition, but also there is some merit in not even acknowledging that you're being funny while you're being funny.
I'm going to have to go back because I loved that Batman as a child and I never revisited it once I was old enough to see that it was funny.
Oh, let me tell you, you got to watch for all the words on the screen because there's a running gag where there are labels on everything in the Batcave and they are overly explanatory and they are not helpful. There's a shot in the first episode where he shouts, "Quickly, Robin, to the giant lighted lucite map of Gotham City." And you run across and there's a giant lighted lucite map of Gotham City, but it has a label at the top of it that says giant lighted lucite map of Gotham City. And that gag put me on the floor as an adult. And then it happened 4 more times during the episode. And that exact gag of them walking over to the television in the Batcave and it having a big label that says television across the top of it is it's at least 5 times in every episode. It's so good. I tried to collect them all. I did a Twitter account called Bat Labels, and I was trying to tweet every label in the Batman series. There's a Tumblr for it too, and it was that was a good time.
So, all right. So we spent some time thinking about Canadian culture as well, and Emily brought in The Grub and Stakers Move a Mountain, which she read. Seriously, folks, so
comfort
many
read.
times. There was never a time in the 90s when Emily was not reading this book.
That's amazing.
A comfort read.
So I think there's an interesting piece of the sort of weirdness or the juxtaposition or the permission to be unpredictable or rewarding of being unpredictable and sort of mashing things up that maybe don't seem like they go together, like gardening and archery, that it sounds like we're saying is somehow quintessentially Canadian, not universal because y'all do not conform, but somehow kind of gets to the ethos of Canadian culture, which I found that very interesting.
Do you know Stephen Leacock, the humorist Stephen Leacock?
He's
a very famous Canadian writer, and his big book was Sunshine Sketches of a Small Town, and it is a series of humorous short stories about small town living in Ontario. And it is always because a colorful character does something unexpected or weird. Mm-hmm. And I love those books and I love Stephen Leacock's writing. And actually the thing that I aspire to most, and I know that I can't win it because I don't write the kind of work that they award, but there is a thing called the Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor. And one of my friends wrote a novel that was shortlisted for it. And I have never been more jealous of anyone. I was just like, and then I really needed her to win it because I was in the special thanks because I helped a little tiny bit. I helped a little tiny bit with information that I knew, and I got a thank you in the special thanks of the book. And I was like, I need my name to be
associated with.
Yeah, with a Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor.
So we also spend some time talking about idiots on the internet.
Yes.
And we could probably do a whole episode about translation and sort of the ways in which, like, because I said if I looked at an F and Birds comic and I didn't read English, I would never predict what it actually means.
Yes.
And so that led to the eat the smell of my farts in French, which is delightful.
Mother smelt of elderberries. Just
I think there's something really interesting about that too, if we were to delve even deeper into humor and sort of culture. You know, the fact that we talked about the fact that log drivers, even though surely there were some south of the US-Canadian border, like it's not a piece of the broadest culture in America. The ways in which the cultures kind of build and then translation and all those things. So that could have been a whole nother episode.
Yes.
We don't have time
I
for it right now.
think that when you see the short, you're going to look at that short and you're going to see the design of the character of the log driver and you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's the Canadian stereotype. You know, like.
Interesting. What am I forgetting? We talked about so much. I know I'm missing some takeaways here.
I know. And I'm a derailer.
No, that's okay.
Very good.
It's okay. It's beautiful.
Yeah. We talked about the ukulele.
We did a little bit. Yes, indeed.
We talked about drawing feet as dinner rolls.
Well, we did. We talked about the ways in which this maybe influenced you as an artist, which I think is really interesting. Like you talked about literal ways that you aped the look of it when you were a young artist. But I think there also were some things that maybe you hadn't examined about the ways that this has influenced what appeals to you and like sort of what you want to be portraying and rendering in the whole piece of the comic, which I find really interesting. It's not a coincidence that we invited you to come on this show to talk about something important from your childhood, and this is the thing that you brought us.
I think you're right. I think that this is it's a thing that I bring up at any opportunity because every time that I meet people who don't know what it is, and they're like always, because they're not Canadian, I just need to expose them to this vital piece of Canadiana because like, I think it says a lot about us as a country.
Well, it seems to me that it's not just like a side chair in the furniture of your brain, Aaron. It's like a whole damn couch.
It's right up here. Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty great. Well, this was a lot of fun. So listeners, we will link to it in the show notes, but please go check out Erin's work at effinbirds.com. So that's EFFIN birds.com. And from there, you can get to all the social media places. And as Erin put it when we were first logging on before we hit record, you don't have to like see news about awful stuff, news in order to read it.
That's right. I put all the comics up on the website. I put a new comic up every day around 2:00 in the afternoon. And they're also scheduled. I had the horrible realization that because of the way that my publishing schedule works for calendars, I submitted all of my 2027 comics back at the start of June. And now we're in editorial for 2027. But if I were to die today, the comic would post online for at least 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
We got to get better about scheduling our posts, Sam.
Right.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely delightful. I'm so glad that we met you at Fan Expo. And thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was like, and which Fan Expo did we meet at? Because I did so many in a row.
Yeah. Chicago.
Okay. Yeah. That was part of, did I tell you that I was in the middle of like 7 shows in 9 weeks? Yeah, I still had like 3 more to go after that. Yeah. And my brain was so fried. But did you guys get to the live painting event? Did you see any of what happened there?
Not yours. No.
Oh, I had a parrot join me and I painted a parrot while the parrot was on my canvas.
So cool.
That's great. Yeah, that was a good time.
That's fun.
I like to do a stunt, and that was a good stunt.
That's a good stunt. That's a good one.
It's funny that you brought up Speed because I was supposed to do Twister next time, but I wanted to switch it to Speed.
So you're going to bring me deep thoughts about Speed
for our next one.
Cool.
I love Speed. Speed is so good.
You'll have to listen to our next episode.
I've seen Speed a lot of times. I hate to say. It's all right. It was full of cans. Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing that. And Erin, you'll have to listen.
All right.
Absolutely.
This show is a labor of love, but that doesn't make it free to produce. If you enjoy it even half as much as we do, please consider helping to keep us overthinking. You can support us at our Patreon. There's a link in the show notes. Or leave a positive review so others can find us. And of course, share the show with your people. Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes.
Thank you to Resonate Recordings for editing today's episode.
Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?